spending money on big features to begin with. People just don't realize that label clearance is a thing. Spending money on big features to begin with. People just don't realize that label clearance is a thing.
Shout out to the people who think that way. I need some compelling evidence.
I'm not shouting them out. That's ridiculous. These are the same people that would take the Jay-Z dinner over the $500,000. I'm not shouting those people out.
I was honestly surprised at the response to this tweet. So I'm going to go over it a little bit, but I'm going to leave it pretty open-ended because I still want to hear from our community, people who haven't experienced it or haven't read it yet. So Z from, I was about to say Afrotech, from Audio Max said, well, first it started with Meek Mill tweeting, every time I do a verse, I charge $250K. And up. If you got $150K on site and I like the song, we can swap it out. So not quite sure what he means by swap it out. That could mean that he's going to swap a verse with you. That may mean he could exchange the $250 for the $150 because he rocks with you. People interpreted that way differently. But
I think it's a drug dealer term.
Okay, see, there you go. Swap it out. I don't know. There's a lot of that part. When I read it, I didn't even think about that part much. I just was like $250K. So that was the part that I focused on. But a lot of people were talking about that, so that's why I'm bringing attention to it. But Z from Audio Max says, if you spend music industry math, if you spend $250,000 on a guest verse, you need to generate roughly 75 million streams just to break even on that expense. Assuming you own 100% of the record, add production and engineering cost, the break even line rises, right? So I want to ask y'all what y'all's opinion of this is. I would love for our community to weigh in on their thoughts here. I don't want to super highlight a lot of what people were saying, but I'll just give a few natural objections. A lot of people are like, you're not going to only make money off of streaming, right? And not Spotify. So that's a roundabout Spotify figure. If you're including Tidal, Apple Music, and a couple of other sources that are a little bit higher, then they were like, it's not just streaming. You can exploit it in several different ways. So that's one of the original pushbacks that people have. Another one is that it's not just the monetary initial original recoupment of that. It's the cosign. It's the potential of him being in a music video. There's several other benefits. There's you being in the spotlight for labels now that Meek Mill has been on one of your tracks. So a lot of people noted that there are several benefits. I will say the overwhelming response was that Z was wrong. And if they had it, they would try to get a $150K verse from Meek because he's most likely going to love their track.
Well, I mean, maybe this is me being ignorant. So I'm going to start with a question. Like, who has this ever worked for? Like, who has Meek done a verse with that has gone off to do amazing things? Like, just a verse. I'm not saying, maybe there's somebody that he signed to his label. I'm talking about just a one-off verse, and then kind of went, the trajectory of their career went like boom. Like, is there a case study for that?
Respectfully, I don't know anybody on his label by name, so I don't even know if immediate co-signing verses is beneficial.
Yeah, Meek is on. I mean, Meek, I think he's definitely on the backside of his career from my standpoint. I mean, you always have the opportunity to put some more fuel on the fire, so maybe he has another resurgence. But like, just features in general, like buying features from bigger artists, it's typically a bad idea. Unless there are like a lot of things lined up, it's typically a bad idea. And some of those things being lined up, and you guys can add to this list, is one, there's some commitment on their end to promote it as well. Two, maybe a commitment to a video. 3, a commitment to be added as a primary artist on Spotify. 4, you are skill wise on the same level of this artist, right? Because a lot of times people would reach out to Hop and the guys for verses, and I think they just wanted to do it because they were fans. Like if you just want the experience and you're just a fan of an artist, then cool. But if you're actually expecting a return, then you have to be on like a similar skill level, because when people play the song, they're gonna go right to their favorite artist verse, and if they even hear yours, they're probably gonna think it's whack. You have to over deliver on the track for them to even think it's on par with their favorite artists, right? So the last thing you want is to spend hella money and then they listen to the song and be like, man, Meek's verse was dope, but that other guy was trash. Like then you just threw 250,000 is a wild number. Please don't ever even think about spending that much on a verse unless it's like an unreleased verse from like Michael Jackson or something. Yeah, those are my thoughts. It's typically a no. Like I wouldn't spend for a verse, especially that much.
Well, I combed through the conversation that Z started on Twitter, and no one talked about label clearance, which is...
Isn't he independent though? Isn't he?
Isn't Warner Brothers? Isn't he?
I thought he was talking about because he said wasn't that some of the chatter a few months ago? Like where am I going to take my talents? I don't know if he necessarily said that, but like he was looking for a new partner. That's what, because I know that I think even Two Lost might have had a conversation with him.
I think that's why he was able to do the deal with Vidya, because I think he is independent now. Or it could be that maybe his label's independent. I'm not exactly sure, but I do think, I had the same thought, Payne. I'm like, I don't know exactly where he is with that, but to me, the label clearance thing is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean I've never been involved with an artist that was signed. Like we've never gotten a verse from somebody that was signed to a label. Yeah. I don't think, but that's a good point. I just think he is independent now from past. Every once in a while, Meek tweet some random stuff, but I think one of the tweets was about his independence not too long ago.
I mean, there was a period when Drake was independent too. You really don't know. And an artist of Meek Mill's stature is probably not going to stay unsigned. And even if they're independent, if that means they're affiliated with a label or some kind of team, there still could be clearance required. If we zoom out of the conversation a little bit and just talk spending money on big features to begin with, people just don't realize that label clearance is a thing. So even if you spend $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000, you run into, I don't know who's an artist that's not quite at the Meek Mill level, but they're, like a YBN Corday or somebody, and you just happen to have 25,000 cash on you, and you're like, I got this song. He likes the song. You give him the $25,000 cash. He takes it. He records a verse, and then you drop it a week later. You're all excited about it, and all of a sudden, it's gone from all the platforms because the labels are like, we don't know who you are. You didn't clear this with us. It happened. It has happened a lot. People get upset about it, and that label clearance might cost another $25,000 or $50,000 if they even approve of it. And then when you try to put it on the platforms and you list them as a co-artist, as a main artist, they will reject that too, because they don't want your song on their artist's Spotify page being prominently featured. So when you start to really peel back all the layers, what is that investment really doing for you other than saying, hey, I got a feature with a dope artist? Unless there's some kind of holistic strategy that involves label clearance, that involves, a music video, that involves some kind of incredibly well thought out campaign. People aren't thinking that. Even the scenario Meek Mill described. If I bump into you, you got 150,000 cash on you right now, man. That's Meek making quick money. That's not the person handing off $150,000 cash making a sound business decision.
Yeah, most of these
buying a damn luxury car in a parking lot.
Yeah,
it looks good, and then you drive that bitch home, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's no muffler. I didn't even realize that. Oh, what's the mileage on this? I didn't even check. I mean, artists are getting money doing this. It's just when it's time to actually make it happen, and it's not even the artist's fault. The artist, they're getting paid for what they're delivering. If an artist, if Lil Baby sells you a verse for 100,000, and you're basically a nobody, that's a deal. But that knife in your back is going to come from the record label.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these artists just, it's a lick. Like, they're just looking for the bread. They're not really invested in these songs. They don't really care about your career trajectory as an artist. Like, they're just trying to get a quick payment. And
it's not their job to.
They don't want that on their Spotify profile. They don't want your song. The person that I think did a feature the right way is Joyner Lucas. I think he paid Lil Baby for his feature, but they did a video together. Joyner obviously is a skilled artist. Let me see actually how many and the song is fire. Like, the song, I remember playing that song like back to back, and I'm not even really a Joyner Lucas fan like that. But I'm gonna pull it up eventually. But long story short, it's typically a bad idea to get a feature from an art independently. I'm trying to think of somebody who I think Futuristics paid off, because like he used to buy verses from us, and he could hold his own on a song. And a lot of his fans were our fans. So there was some overlap, and he built a relationship with the guys. So there typically was a music video, because I think he paid my brother, he paid Dizzy. The song that he has with Dizzy has like 50 million streams. That's not normal. But like, I think Futuristic did it the right way. But 98% of verse purchases, I think, are not the wisest investment. Maybe even more than that.
Just to be clear about Joyner Lucas, though, he had 4 gold plaques and 1 platinum plaque, and I believe he already had an Eminem feature by the time that Lil Baby feature dropped. So that was strategic. That's someone who is used to doing this.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. If it's a part of your growth strategy, if you have a strategy in place and this isn't just your first stop off, and that's what it seemed. It seemed like a ton of novice artists were trying to justify it. And then there were a handful of I won't even call them novice managers, just people who don't understand the trade-off, because it was some people who worked in the industry, and I looked at some of the people that they worked for, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I could tell that they've never grown an artist. To me, if you're gonna, so I'll give you an example. When we were at Def Jam with my artist Caleb Mitchell, he was fresh, he was young, his song, they basically had to sign us. I've told this story before. They basically had to sign us because they told the Jets that one of our songs was, they had already signed us and it was there. So then the Jets were already like chopping up reels or commercials and stuff for it. And Def Jam didn't own the song. So we ended up getting signed. We got what we wanted in the deal. So they were like, let's make this song bigger. And so they had another artist who was signed to the label. He was, I can't even remember his name now, but he was hot at the time. He was also from New Jersey. Maybe a month after our feature went live, he got locked up. And then a year later, he was convicted of like racketeering or something like that. So he's like in jail for a really long time. I think had the song, and not to sound insensitive, had the song dropped right after his conviction came through, it probably would have skyrocketed. But he was doing he probably had 2 or 3 million monthly listeners. We dropped it as it was a collab, but he was a Def Jam artist. But here's the crazy thing. Def Jam charged us $10,000 for the feature. And they're like, this is a discount. So they're like, we negotiated a discount. So they were like, this is the direction that we want to go in. They didn't give us a marketing budget. So out of the money for his recording budget, we had to give them $10,000 for this feature. And then because he was a primary artist on it, he also took 50% of the royalties, right? So people aren't even talking about that. If Meek Mill even agrees to be a primary artist, that's not going to be included in the initial price that you paid him for the verse. He's going to be like, no, you paid me for the verse. Now, if this joint goes up, I want to be paid for it. And that's, again, if he really likes the song. It's my opinion that if you have $150,000 to $250,000 to spend, you're either trust fund or have an investor, but there's way smarter ways to spend that if you really want to spend it on a feature. You could, again, like Dame said, like getting a verse from a smaller artist who still has a fan base that makes sense that you can share, to me, is a way smarter play. I've seen a lot of artists do that well. It's an artist that's just a little bit big. Like maybe you have 50,000 monthly listeners and you go to somebody who has 500,000 monthly listeners and you offer them $1,000, right? Or maybe, but you already have to have a fan base. You already have to have a body of work to direct people to that looks like it matches, and you need to be consistent. So to me, it's like, go get 10 or 15 $5,000 verses. Pay for people, like Dame said, to fly out and be in your video. Pay to fly out to their events so you look like you're in the Knicks and they're like, oh, this is Da-Da-Da's new homie. And then people will start to validate you as an artist and be like, yeah. He rolls with Guap Dad or he rolls with Smino. Yeah, of course, it's legit. It's one of their homies. He rolls with Saba. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that you start to create a bigger narrative and then invest in like telling the story, invest in the video. Guap Dad did a very similar thing. I don't think he paid for the verses, but he paid to get around the right people. He was flying into sessions. He ended up being on the Dreamville tape, and he talks about how he scammed his way into that. And then it's just like a buildup from there to where now he's a legitimate artist based off of affiliation and association. And he got features from those people because they respected him and they rocked with him. But you going directly, to the big dog, it just doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't, it's like when poor people win a huge lump sum in the lottery, like the likelihood is like, I think over 80% are bankrupt within 10 years because you don't have the tools and the understanding of wealth to manage it. And it ends up leaving you corrupted. So for you to say, yeah, I'm going to spend $250K on a Meek Mill verse, tells me that you've never built a sustainable fan base because there's
70%.
70. Okay. Yeah. There's no wisdom there. Like you don't have the wisdom to facilitate and you probably are going to, if you spend the 250K there, do you have the money to seed out everything else that you need from there? And why is that your first swing and not your last swing? So I think you'd have to give me a super compelling case. And a lot of people are saying it's not about the money, it's about the cosign. But I don't know who's going to be like, oh man, Meek Mill cosign this. Like, let me go like really dig in and then again, Meek Mill, he has, 11.2, I just looked it up, million monthly listeners, or 14.3 million monthly listeners. So he would have to be a primary artist, and he would have to not drop some music for some time for it to stay on his profile, and for you to really get some with the, I think that's the dude's name, Casanova. With the Casanova feature, the reason he was willing to put it on his profile and that Def Jam agreed is because he had a project dropping 2 weeks later. So they knew it was only going to stay on his profile for 2 weeks, which was really frustrating to me because they didn't disclose that to us. So we're like, dope. It's growing. And then a huge plateau because he drops a project, that song gets pushed down. So, yeah. Shout out to the people who think that way. I need some compelling evidence.
I'm
So
not
if you,
shouting. I'm not shouting them out. That's ridiculous. I'm
I,
not shouting them out. I'm not shouting them out. These are the same people that would take the Jay-Z dinner over the $500,000. I'm not
that's
shouting those
true.
people out.
That's true.
It's the smallest. Yeah, it's the same people. It's the same. It's
Pay to
the
get
same.
into the Rock Nation brunch. You could take
Yeah,
the 500K and then use 100K, 50K to get into the Rock Nation brunch. You know, you tell somebody, I'll pay for your ticket if you take me. 50K, 50K, now it's 100K. You've pocketed 400K. Now you're at the Rock Nation
yeah.
brunch.
I'm
You
not.
easy.
I don't even need to go through that math. I'm just going to tell you you're stupid. Unless because somebody that's ready for that conversation is not going to have to pay at all, probably. But I just looked it up. So the Ramen and OJ song has like 250 million streams. But again, Joyner was ready for that feature. He looked ready, like he has the same jewelry, like they look like on the same, level, like financially. And he's a skillful artist. And the song is fire. So don't look at that as an example, be like, oh, well, Joyner Lucas did it, so I should do it. Like you're not the same. So you're trying to skip steps. All this stuff is just trying to skip steps. And you don't even have 250,000. So this is an imaginary scenario anyway. But most people are just trying to skip steps. And it's typically a bad idea, I think 99% of the time.
And if all you have is $250,000 and you're asking people, what should I do with this as an artist? What should I invest it in? I'd be like, put it in a low risk, high yield savings account or something, man. Get that.
And there are a lot of the trust fund babies. I used to see this with like Lil Wayne's label. The smaller artists. And I actually knew a pop chick whose dad paid, I think, like 200,000. I think 100 of it went to Lil Twist, and then he shot a music video, all this different stuff. It's still on YouTube. You can go look at it. But like, where did his daughter go? Who knows? She's probably frolicking overseas now, but this was like 10 years ago and they spent mad guap. So it's like, if you got the money like that and you're just trying something out, or if you make your money in unique ways in America and you have extra bread, because I've also seen that too. There's hella trap stars with major features because they can afford it, but it's like, we've never heard of them.
The real sad part is, and I've seen people do this where however they make their money, they spend all of it investing in their music career in really unwise ways. And then they give up and they're like, wow, the music business made me broke. Music business didn't make you broke. You made yourself broke. But I think one of the saddest stories was one of my first tours I went on, and even if I knew their names, I wouldn't say it, but I don't remember their names. It was this group that had a tour bus and everything. It was amazing. They had the tour bus, they had a full band, and it was because I think one of the guys had a great job. He was a doctor or a business owner, something. And he was like, you know what? I just want to, I don't want any regrets in life. I'm going to quit. I'm going to cash out my 401k. I'm putting it all in my business, which is a crazy risk, right? And if they had succeeded, it would have been an amazing underdog story, right? Here's the thing. Their music was fucking terrible. And I see that all the time where someone is just like, and this is why I go so hard on this narrative that all you need in the music business is money, market it, because you hear that all the time. My music is bad. I just saw a tweet. It was this artist saying, y'all don't support your friends' music, even though they're way better than these industry artists. They're not. There are some really talented people out there who, again, they're not honing their talent the way, when you get to a certain point in the music business, in all likelihood, people already like your music. You can say it's true. You can say Drake is trash all day. It's not. That's the Russ conversation where people are like, I'm better than Drake, or you're better than Drake, or blah, blah, blah. And Russ is like, no, if some random underground artist was making music that sounded like Drake's new music, they would not be underground for long. People just they're tone deaf when it comes to music in general, but especially with their own. And I understand that you should love your music, but also have some honest friends too. You do your friends no favor by telling them they're amazing when their music isn't that good. And if your friends don't support your music, it's probably not because they're assholes who are just dick riding celebrities. It might be because they just don't like your music, either because it's not for them or because it's not very good. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that because there are some people who will waste all of their money and all of their time promoting music that's bad, when in reality they should just work on improving their music. This isn't the end of your story, right? Like, you can make better music, but a lot of people don't. Do we have time to talk about the Ice Spice
We do.
lawsuit?
Yeah, but real quick, I just want to trash the narrative that like labels are only signing like microwave artists. Like they're doing a lot of that, like the artists that aren't, not that talented. But there are a shitload of extremely, extremely talented artists that are signed to these labels, like very talented artists. Even Chris Brown did an interview fairly recently where he said he has like I want to say that, don't quote me on this, but it was a very high number, like 5,000 like unreleased songs, right? And I'm talking to artists, and you don't even have three, like, Chris Brown is on a whole nother level. But like, even there's a kid named Rule out of Australia that I've followed for quite some time. He was kind of being positioned to be like the next Justin Bieber, but so there's been so much like time and development poured into what he's been doing, but he's extremely talented, extremely talented. So the narrative that labels are only crunching numbers and finding like microwave acts, yes, there is a portion of the labels or A&Rs that are doing that, but there are extremely talented people at these major labels as well. So yeah, that's just a narrative that I think we need to push back on sometimes, because
A good example of somebody new too is Flyana Boss. They were signed to Atlantic, which I didn't find out until I started trying to book them. But they were signed to Atlantic, I think, for 2 years in a developmental phase. So like they were just like making songs. The girls like TikTok. They were living in California, I think, together already as roommates, and like, like making TikToks. And then they had dropped 3 songs, and or 2 songs, and they had a song that was about to come out, and then the content blew. So I thought it was just some chicks who were rapping together and they blew, and then they got signed. But when I started reaching out, they had just gotten them a booking agent and whatever. So I started looking into it, and they had already been on the label for like 2.5 years before. So like even that encouraged me, because I was like, oh, okay, dope. Like I know labels are still signing artists that they're trying to develop. I think the development is lacking a lot of times. So it is on the artist, because I do think that the TikToks were on them. I don't think that was on the label. That's the same when I went to Def Jam. Had I come equipped with the understanding that I was going to be the marketing department, I would have operated differently. But it wasn't until we dropped the song and we spent $10,000 of his budget, and they were like, I think we should reach out to Triller influencers. And I was like, wait, this is our marketing meeting? And so then I was like, well, why did we end up doing this feature? And they were like, well, this and this and this. And they didn't have any really good, concise reasons, because they had never dealt with an artist as small as mine with as small of a budget. They had dealt with smaller artists with bigger budgets because they had signed several other people. Anyways, long story is, I do think that labels are still signing good acts. I do think that they luck up sometimes when those acts are join the label like they join the league, and they're determined to work and make it work for them. And then I do think that there are some artists that just come out on a label after years and years of development. I think of Cash Page. She was signed right around the same time that we were signed to Def Jam, and Cash Page is just now starting to blow like overseas. She had a couple of big moments, but I think, yeah, labels are still signing people. So I'm with you, Dame. It's not just the Chris Browns of the world. There are a lot of people who are talented and in development right now in the label system. But how you get spotted, how you get found, how you get connected, who knows? A lot of times it's a manager knows somebody, or an A&R lived next to somebody, or somebody got lucky because somebody brought them backstage with, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I emphasize always the importance of being outside. The more that you're in the mix, the higher your opportunities of getting noticed.
Yeah, I think Def Jam is doing a really good job of like planting some seeds. They have a lot of talent coming through their system at the moment. So check out their roster.
It's Tunji over there, right? Tunji went over. He left
Yeah.
RCA. Yeah. So shout out to him. I feel like he's really actually helping them do a lot of cool things. I agree.
You want to talk about brand sponsorships? I do too, because those lately have been like the biggest blessing and curse in my life. But I want to hear what you have to say about that first, Dame.
Nah, I kind of really just wanted to make one point, because there's a brand that I've been talking to for literally months, like going back and forth, probably 40, 50 emails, 10 plus calls. And I was told yesterday, I don't have the paperwork, so you can't get excited until you have the paperwork or a check clears. But I was told yesterday that it got approved. And I want, and but when you're appreciate it, but when you're in a new brand partnership, like obviously the ideal situation is for this to be a long-term relationship, somebody that you can continue to build with and just get consistent check from. So if it's a new partnership, what I would encourage people to do is really sit down and figure out, like, how can you over deliver on this first one? Like, how can you give them way more value than they signed up for, right? So it's really understanding like what their goals are, because brands are going to have different goals. Sometimes they want to sell product. Sometimes they want to grow their YouTube or their Instagram. They want to be very specific about a particular platform. So you have to come up with ideas to make sure that you're checking that box. In this situation, they're looking for Instagram awareness. So like all of the ideas and suggestions that I pitched them were about like growing specifically their Instagram following. So it's great that we are going to get this check, but I would also encourage people, okay, you got the check. Don't just put it in your pocket. Sometimes you want to take a piece of that and invest in the project to ensure you over deliver, right? So for us, it's like, who else can we get? Who else that's in our network? What other Black creators that we work with that are in our network that we might be able to give some of this money to increase the chance of us like over delivering on the numbers, right? So because right now their brand only has like 6,000 followers. Like I already know that just with Ja's page and just with the stuff that we're going to do, that we could probably double it. But what if we can triple it, quadruple it with getting some other people involved and, building relationships with other creators? They're like, oh, wow, we didn't have this opportunity. Now we're going to get money to promote this brand and potentially build a relationship. So it's investing into the partnership. It's networking with other creators to get them involved to better that relationship. Don't always think like, okay, I got this money, now let's pocket it. Great, boom. You got to think about how you can over deliver on what you committed to. Because I for sure am because this brand manager of this particular wine company, he's going to get ownership of a few more brands. So if we kill it with this brand, once he has another wine or whatever, he knows where to go. He knows where to go to get increased exposure on everything that he's doing. And he's new in his position. So I gotta deliver. I gotta over deliver, not only for the brand, but I want him to feel good about working with us so that his boss is like, oh, you're doing a really good job. Right. So he can eventually get promoted or get more responsibility. At the end of the day, we all win. But long story short, maybe you need to take some of that money and invest into making sure that this partnership works, because it's tough when you're always looking for new partnerships, right? You want people that are kind of in your back pocket and go, oh, we're doing this again. Let me just pitch them this idea because I know they're going to be on board because of what we did the last time. So that was probably a long-winded way to communicate what I'm telling you, but make sure you over deliver. And for people that don't have brand partnerships yet, you got to plant these seeds now, right? Even if your page is not that big, like genuine or authentically, like place some of the things, the brands that you like in your visuals now, so that when you do make contact with these people a year later, 2 years later, whatever, you can point back to some content that was already in there. Say, hey, I really do rock with your product. It's genuine. Look, this is what I did. I made a song about it, or it was in this video, etc. Because these things take a lot of time at every level. The conversations take time at every level, especially when you're dealing with like alcohol brands, because a lot of compliance and things involved. And you got to make sure that you don't do anything reckless. Because I told him, because we went ahead and shot some of the stuff already, because we were going back and forth. So we're already shooting the web series. I was like, man, just put it. I feel like this deal's going to go through. Just put it in the show. And then I told him, I was like, hey, we already have some great shots. But then he was like, did she grab the bottle, or did she drink out of the cup? Because they don't want the image of like just grabbing a wine bottle and just taking it straight from the bottle. They want it in a cup. So there's a lot of little things that need to be in place, and you got to obey all the rules. Because I think sometimes artists are just like, well, I did this, I did enough. Like, no, you probably didn't. And even if you feel like you did enough, I feel like you should, again, over deliver on what you say you can do, just to ensure that relationship is long-standing.
And if you're a small artist and you feel like you don't have a big following and brand partnerships are far off, that's not true. UGC content, that's user-generated content, is more prevalent now than major brands are spending more money on UGC than brand partnerships with larger influencers. I'm going to give more information about that, but I just started doing a lot of different UGC stuff and taking classes, and I know a lot of UGC creators, and on average they have less than 10,000 followers. I know one that has 1,500 followers. And so if, like Dame said, if you want to just start putting brands in your, not too much hey guys, look at this Apple phone, but if you want to start, especially when it comes to skincare, clothing, brands that you're already using, just shout them out. Because now when another brand circles back, you could be like, here's a UGC that I made for this brand. It doesn't matter that you didn't get paid for it, but it just gives an example of your work. And from there, you can even if it's just in-kind sponsorship. I know some of y'all would just love free merch and free clothes or free shoes or whatever. So sometimes it just leads to that. So I would say don't be like, well, I don't have a lot of following. Take your platform seriously and think about ways that you can deliver your product as if you are a massive platform. And if you feed into it like that, the opportunities will start to come.
Yeah, I drink what was the smoothies? I think Koya smoothies. I was drinking those for a minute, and I just posted it. I wasn't even looking for a brand sponsorship or anything, but they sent me a packet of for coupons of free. It was so I got 30 free drinks, just for putting it in my story. So a lot of these people will just give you product, even if you have a smaller page.
Yeah, that was my first sponsorship. It was with Cliff Bar. They just sent me a bunch of stuff because I posted about them. And lately I've been getting great offers from companies, especially producer companies, tech companies. I have many, I think I'm going on my third partnership with Wish. So that stuff is cool. It's a little money. It's free products. I think there are a lot of companies out there that I'm on the fence about commission-based partnerships, because to me, that's not really a partnership. And you get contacted all the time. I know there are people who make money off that, but I'm basically an unpaid, uncontracted employee for your company, working for a small percentage of whatever business I bring you. And I get contacted all the time by people, and you'll see it if you're a younger woman and you're posting content to Instagram, you look at your comments, it's going to be, oh, contact us, I love your vibe, check, let's do this partnership. And it's a 10% commission on some kind of fast fashion. So you see that all the time. I'd be careful about that. I would avoid that if I could. But the reason that people are getting, like Aaron said, these offers from legitimate companies, and there are scams too. There are a lot of scams out there where they'll have you download something, just like that scam I showed you earlier from the fake Empire guy, where they'll have you download something that's not actually a contract. It's a virus. A lot of that out there. But the user-generated content is key. And again, it just goes right back to creating content, which if you're a musician who's trying to brand yourself, you should be doing anyway. People who create compelling content that's authentic, it resonates with people. The numbers go up. These brands look at you as potential partners, and because you have the social proof and the numbers, you can ask for money. You can ask for $300 in free products, $1,000 in free products. All these YouTube true crime podcasts, they're making money hand over fist off these Hello Freshes and whatever VPNs and this and that they're advertising on their platforms with like a minute long pre-roll or whatever integrated ad they choose. It's just a crazy time when individuals are the ones who are seen as advertising platforms now. And on YouTube, as frustrated as I am with YouTube, if I get a brand's partnership on YouTube and for some reason my brand partnership videos tend to be successful, I'm getting paid for the brand partnership, I'm getting paid YouTube ad revenue, and I'm getting paid a third way in attention and visibility. So it's a really interesting time to be a content creator. And I'm not telling you to put content above your art, but I'm saying you're a human. You're not just someone who churns out music and beats all the time. There's got to be some other dimension to you, and a lot of people don't want to explore that. If you don't explore it, you don't make the content, you don't get these offers. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, the commission-based stuff, again, just like the feature purchase for $250,000, like I accept those in very rare circumstances. But there are a lot of creators that are doing like the affiliate marketing for Amazon or whatever. Like they have their Amazon page and they have, there's a lot of people in the content creation space would like put a link to the lights they use and the camera they use, like in the description. Like that to me is actually, pretty smart. It's not exactly what we're talking about.
No, it is. If you're using the products already, you may as well set up a commission account.
Yeah.
Let's end on that because I know people have places to go and people to see. That being said, appreciate you tuning in. TwoLost.com. Use the code @odds for 3 free months of premium music distribution. If you decide Two Lost isn't for you, the songs stay up. If you decide you want to continue, it's $2.99 a month or cheaper if you go with the annual membership. TwoLost.com @odds is the code. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll be back. Next time we're going to talk about the Ice Spice lawsuit, and we actually have the real document. We have the actual complaint. So I am eager to talk about exactly. Normally we just cover articles about a lawsuit, but shout out to D-Tech. We have the actual form. So tune in for that. I'm looking forward to it. Peace.